Welcome to another episode of Software Explorations, Concept and Overviews hosted by yours truly, Tech Coach Ralph. So, imagine if you went out of town for about a week, and once you get back home, whether it's whether it's a house or whether it's an apartment, whatever the case may be, right? You get back home and you see the front door looks kind of weird, and once you walk in, there's just about nothing there, right? And the things that are there, it's like trash everywhere. It's just a mess, right? And now you're like, first you're shocked, you're taken aback. You're like, when did this happen? How did this happen? Who did this? Right? Like you have all these type of questions, right? And you just have this feeling. You have this like you can't even explain it, right? It's just this feeling that comes over you that like you've been violated, right? So with that in mind, today we're going to be talking about security testing, right? And we can relate security testing on a website application, on just, in general, on the web, in business situations, right? To that feeling that we would have if we were to come home and we were to find out that everything that we have, it's a mess or it's gone or it's just we have the things we're going to look for first. We're going to go directly there and say, oh my God, did they take this? Did they take that? Look what they did to our family, the things that we value the most, right? So we're going to be checking those first, and then as we go through, we're going to keep finding more and more stuff, and we're going to keep feeling worse and worse and worse. We're going to be feeling more and more violated, right? So that's the topic for today, and let's get into it. All right, so security testing is huge. With the technology that's coming out, it makes it easier for unethical people to violate us more and more and more. I remember when I was in my early 20s, right? I had this car and I had a very nice radio in there. And one morning, around maybe 6:30 in the morning, my mom, I was laying on the couch, right? Sleeping on the couch that night, and my mom comes to me and she's like, "Hey, don't get worried, don't panic, but something happened to your car." So I go out there and I look and I see that I was parked in front of the house, right? And I go out there and I see that the window's broken and they stole my radio in the car. You know, I was like, okay, it's where we are. It happens, but that feeling of you've been violated, somebody been into your property, and they stole what belonged to you, right? So now I had to go and secure it because I didn't do a good job of securing my property, right? So now I have to go and fix this window, find a new radio, get an alarm installed, right? And that a lot of times that is what leads us to making better decisions and to how we protect ourselves, how we protect our property, etc. So now if you fast forward, all right. Now if you fast forward, someone who's been through different types of these traumatic events, like in my case, it wasn't that serious, but you could think like if somebody been through a worse event, they might take up martial arts. They might take up, self defense training, how to use a firearm, different types of things that they would use. Like the way that they move might be different. They might not take the same route home. Like so many different things based on the traumatic event that you would have went through, right? So for me, a window getting broken in a car and a radio getting stolen, not that big of a deal, right? But you still take some steps to prevent that from happening again. Is it 100% guaranteed? Of course not. But you're going to do what you can do to prevent that from happening again. So in my case, so of course you fix the window because you have to repair the damages, get a new radio, put an alarm in the car, and be careful how you park your car, be careful what you leave in your car. So many different things that you have to be aware of, right? Each case has its different outcomes. People would react differently, but the overall concept is the same. So now if we shift that into software testing, we're going to go through the principles of software testing, and we're going to get into that. So let's go to our slideshow as we always do, and let's go through it. And As we go through it, we'll see if we can integrate some parallels to our lives to what we see in the software testing industry. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so our topic is security testing. First and foremost, what is security testing? So, security testing is a type of software testing that uncovers vulnerabilities of the system and determines that the data and resources of the system are protected from possible intruders. It ensures that the software system and application are free from any threats or risks that can cause a loss. Security testing of any system is focused on finding all possible loopholes and weaknesses of the system which might result in a loss of information or reputation to the organization. Security testing is a type of software testing that focuses on evaluating the security of a system or application. The goal of security testing is to identify vulnerabilities and potential threats and to ensure that the system is protected against unauthorized access, data breaches, and other security related issues. So if we think about that, right, that's not much different than the way that we try to secure our regular day lives. Now, we might not think of all the situations because you can't like you don't know what you don't know. So you can't prevent everything, right? But you can do your best to see the situations that you're in and how you can log down the system, log the same way you would log down your house. You secure your house at night. You need to log down your application so that people who should not be in there are not in there, and people that who should be in there are able to access. So, what's the purpose of security testing? So, it's to identify threats in the system, to measure the potential vulnerabilities of the system, to help in detecting every possible security risk in the system, and to help developers in fixing the security problems through coding. So, it's a series of things, but ultimately, we want to be able to fix those security problems in our code base, in our infrastructure. Like, we have to harden our defenses. Okay. Now, what are the principles of security testing? So when we're testing for security, we're looking for confidentiality, right? We need to make sure that the information in our system, right, it is not accessible to people that shouldn't have it, right? It needs to stay confidential. So you don't want to, like, when we see these data breaches, these leaks, and everything like that. That's a problem because people who are not supposed to have access is getting access, and then now they're in control, right? Integrity of the data, so that whatever is in there in the databases or whatever it might be, they cannot be changed by, like, they can only be changed by the mechanisms that are supposed to change them, right? Then we have authentication. When people are trying to connect to the system, do we have the proper protocols in place to prevent them from getting in, right? Or do I have the right security? So how secure is our door, right? Do we have the right locks in place? Do we change the security code every so often so people can't, like, end up finding it and then going in through there? And what's the authorization protocol, right? How do we say yes or no? Who are the guards at the gate, right? That are checking, okay, this person is on the list. This person is not on the list, right? Availability, right? Is the software able to be accessed when it's supposed to be accessed? Are the doors open when it's supposed to be open? And are they closed when it's supposed to be closed? Do people have a way in when it's supposed to be closed? And there's non repudiation. That confirms the validity and the legitimacy of the messages that are being sent. So that's like the data, it's making sure that it is valid and that it's legitimate. So it all integrates with all the other principles that we've named previously. So, what are the types of security testing? So, we have vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, risk assessment, security auditing, ethical, and I repeat, ethical hacking, posture assessment, application security, network security, social engineering. And if you remember, we had a bug bite episode on social engineering a few weeks ago when the BlackRock technical recruiter Serge Varley got infiltrated by an undercover reporter, right, and leaked some, potentially damaging information on BlackRock practices, right? So many different types of security testing that we're not going to get into each one of them deeply right now because this is a general overview, but just wanted to list it out all the different types of security testing, and then maybe in the future we can go through them one by one and get more details on them. The OWASP top 10. So first, what is OWASP? OWASP stands for Open Worldwide Application Security Project, right? And they have a top 10 list what of what they would say is the top 10 things that you should check for security, and what pretty much what most happens to the most common ways that systems get infiltrated, right? So we'll have broken access control, we'll have cryptographic failures, we'll have injection, and I'll mention something about it. So quickly about injection, right? I remember when I would have these WordPress sites and they would keep getting hacked, right? It turns out that through how certain forms on websites would be, without the proper, like, so I would say it wasn't proper testing. At that time, I didn't know much about software testing. I just knew how to build these little websites using WordPress. But what would happen is people would, or hackers, they would take some form code and use JavaScript to inject it, and then they end up getting access to your site, and then they go and they put these landing pages saying that you've been hacked and all this type of stuff, and then you have to go in and clean it, find all the spots that it was hacked, and try to clean that out, right? So injection was a huge thing, and it can quite possibly be. So that is a key thing to check for when testing. And then there's insecure design. We have security misconfiguration. So when you're configuring your system to see who can come in, who can come out, or who can come in, who can't come in, we might have it misconfigured, and now bad people come in, and good people might not be able to come in, or the bad people can prevent the good people from coming in. They can steal their data. So many different things can happen, right? Then we have vulnerable and outdated components. That is when we do not update our softwares that are part of the application to the most recent updates of the packages that we're using. All right. There's identification and authentication. There's software and data integrity failures, security logging and monitoring. So we're not properly keeping track of who's coming in, who's coming out. Seeing like, okay, there's a bunch of people trying to come in from this location. What's going on here? Who's trying to get us? Do we need to like restrict access from the site? And then there's server side request forgery. I know I didn't go into each one of them into detail, but this is just an overview. The ones that were top of mind, I just gave a brief description on it. But maybe in the future we'll get more deeper into each of these topics. So what's the security testing process, right? So the same way that we have our software development testing process or software testing lifecycle, all testing follows the same flow for the most part, right? So we have our planning and our scope. So we plan what we're going to test, how far we're going to test, right? So we would have test cases for our security test. For our security testing, would have the expected results and we have the actual results, right? We'll have our test data, how we're going to approach it, and then once you have all of that, you have it fully planned out. Then you're going to go into test execution, where you are running your tests and you are, finding all the information. You might have the same test running, but a variance in the test data that you're providing to see, okay, if I send this information, what's going to happen? If I send that information, what's going to happen? And then you go through all the things that we stated previously, and all of those have their separate ways of testing. So it can be quite time consuming, but you can't put too much time on security. All right. And then once we finish with our test, we have our vulnerability assessment, right? Where we are checking, all right, how we can even give it a score. How secure is our system? What needs to be improved? What needs to, what we need to do in order to have our application more secure. And then we have reporting, where we report what our findings are, and we have a remediation period where it's like we're fixing bugs, right? We have security testing bugs where we need to harden down our system, hold down the fort, not allow these problems to remain, because if we can find them, I'm pretty sure those out there, they can find them too. And they don't stop working. They don't sleep. They're always trying to get into your system, and we need to do the best that we can to prevent them. And after we prevent them the first time, we need to keep reassessing, going through this testing process on a regular basis, because new hacks, new things come out every single day, and we need to do our best to prevent it. So, what are the best practices, right? We need to, like I just said, right? So we need to choose the best tools to do these tests, right? Then we need to test it continuously. And with that continuous testing, if we have a way of automating our security testing, it just makes it that much easier because now we can continue to research, finding new tests, new strategies, and adding it to our suite and run that on a scheduled regular basis to see, all right, how was our security last week? How is our security this week? Are we still in good shape, right? And then we find new tests and then we keep adding it and we just keep making it safer and safer and safer, right? And then there's ethical considerations where we have to make sure we're doing it the right way. We don't want to go out and hack somebody's site and say, "Oh, we hacked you," and you have to come at it correctly, right? And then they're staying informed. New information is coming out every day, and you ingest that information and you make the necessary adjustments. Security is something that it's always going to be changing because as we find ways, it's like the criminals always find new ways to get into your stuff before you know about it and before you're able to lock it down. So we're constantly like learning from other people, seeing what hacks happen here, what mistakes happen there, and then we take it back to our own application and we try to lock it down. We have to do our best to lock down our application. There's so many, I'm sure there's like 1,000 ways that people can get into an application that we don't even know of yet and we can't even think of yet because maybe the code isn't written yet, maybe the strategy hasn't fully developed yet. But we have to we have to always stay on track. The cops are always going to be chasing the criminals. It's not the criminals chasing the cops or the cops waiting in line for the criminals to show up. So that's why we have to stay informed and all those best practices above, the right tools, continuous testing, ethical considerations, staying informed, that's going to help us lock down our system and be in the best shape possible. Now, what are the advantages of security testing? So, of course, we're going to be identifying vulnerabilities. That is probably the most important part of seeing, okay, where are we at risk? Risk assessment. And then we are going to be improving our system security because we're going to keep the bad guys out. We're going to let the good guys in. We're going to be ensuring compliance, which is huge because with HIPAA laws, with FDA compliance, all these different types of compliances out there, our security testing is what is allowing us to work in the realm, work in the field, right? Because if you can't comply to the what's put in place, then you run the risk of losing your ability to have a business, and not to mention the lawsuits that are going to come because you did not keep your promises. And by doing those above, you reduce the risk because by being more secure, it's less risky. Because put it like this: if a criminal has 2 houses to rob, right? One house has a bunch of security, so they have a gate, right? Then if you get through the gate, they have a dog. If you get past the dog, you have to there's a like 3 different keys that you need to use to unlock the door, right? Once you get in the door, you have to get past the alarm system, right? And if it's one of those movies, you might have those little laser bars that you have to get around. But 99.9% of people don't have that, right? So you get into the, let's say if you get through all those barriers, you get into the house, you got to put in an alarm code, right? And let's say that you end up getting through the alarm code. Now, if the owner's home, they're trained in martial arts, right? So now you have to deal with that. And then, worst comes to worst, they have weapons to defend themselves. So it's like a relay race that you're trying to run to break into this house. But now you have their neighbor who they don't even lock their doors at night. They have no gate, they have no dog, they don't lock their doors, they have no security system, nothing, right? And they have their windows open so you can see that they have that 75-inch TV on the wall and they're just having a good time. So they go out of town, they leave the house, they go to sleep. Which house is the criminal going to target? The one that is you just walk right in through the front door, or the one that you have to go through so many barriers, right? Of course, it's going to be the one that you can just walk through the front door. So that's the advantages of security testing. We pretty much lock down the fort, okay? But what are the disadvantages of security testing? With that same house that we're referring to, it is resource intensive, right? You have to go through a lot of steps to protect your property, which, although it's resource intensive, it's a decision like how secure do we need to be? So, like I said, most people won't have those laser beams in their house, like when you walk in, that you have to get around, right? Because maybe that's too resource intensive. But those other steps, it might be not too intensive for depending on the what they have in their possession, right? It can be complex because there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of things that you need to put in place to have a secure application, and it has a limited testing scope because, so for example, you, like, let's use the house example, right? You can test the gate, right? And there's only so much that the gate can do. You can test its durability, its strength, all of that, right? But there's very limiting testing scope that you can do through the gate. Then the dog, all right, let's go with the dog. What happens if somebody crosses? Okay, what if somebody just throws the dog a piece of meat? Does it stop trying to protect the property? And then what if the let's say you get to the door, right, and you have those three locks. What if the person is a master lock like person in opening up locks, right? So, but all of those things have their different testing scope. So you have to adjust your test for the gate, you have to adjust your test for the dog, you have to adjust your test for the door, and so forth, right? So many different things to test in a very limited way. And then you can have false positives and negatives. So you might, something might say, oh, it's insecure, but it's not really insecure. It's just that how that test. I would rather have a false positive and take care of that than a false negative, and then you go chasing your tail. So it's so many different things that can happen when you're doing these type of testing, especially this most important type of testing, right? And then there's a difficulty in simulating real world attacks, right? So let's use the house for example. We went through all these scenarios, right? Where we know that they would rather pick the neighbor's house, but let's say there is no neighbor. Let's say you're the only house there, and you have what they want, right? So then they go. Let's say they don't go in through the gate, whatever, right? What if they skydive into your home from the top, right? Or they just find a way, like they climb a tree, whatever the case may be, right? And they find their way on your roof, and they make a hole, and they find a way in, or through some type of window or something. People get creative. So who's going to take into account that method, right? Some different way that they can get into your house. So the simulating real world attacks, because you can go for the obvious, you can go for maybe something not so obvious, but people are creative. What if they go in from underground? Who knows, right? So that is like one of the disadvantages. It's difficult to simulate real world attacks because you never know what your opponent is going to do. You can be prepared as much as possible, but once the bell rings, you have to adjust. You have to figure out what's going to happen. Some real world examples, right? So first and foremost, check out the Bug Bite on Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, right? And in some of the topics we covered, the BlackRock recruiter, who was a victim of social engineering, right? The Colonial Pipeline, which was held at ransom, the Morris worm, which was like pretty much the first software worm that infected multiple networks, especially in the college domain. And then if we look at the security breaches of like Experian, T-Mobile, and so many other companies that you hear, like you'll see, oh, data breach here, data breach there, check your data, check your information, change your password. All of these things that happen with these security breaches. So those are real world examples that we see on a daily basis, right? And new ones are coming out every single day. So in conclusion, software testing plays a pivotal role in ensuring the reliability, functionality, and the security of software applications. It's not just a phase, but a continuous process that begins early in the software development lifecycle and extends throughout the product's lifespan. As we've discussed, the benefits of thorough testing are numerous, from preventing costly post-release issues to boosting customer satisfaction and trust. By embracing a systematic testing approach, leveraging automation, and fostering collaboration amongst development and testing teams, we can achieve higher quality software more efficiently. Remember, software testing is not just about finding bugs. It's about delivering software that meets or exceeds user expectations. That's the most important part, right? It's a discipline that requires skill, diligence, and adaptability as technology evolves. To finish up, in today's show, we covered the importance of security testing, how it relates to our everyday lives, the types of security testing, the OWASP top 10 to look out for, the advantages and disadvantages of security testing, and real world examples. I want everyone to remember that software testing is not just about finding bugs, it's about delivering software that meets or exceeds user expectations. I repeat, that exceeds user expectations. It's not even about meeting them, it's about exceeding the user expectations, because once you exceed them, they will keep coming back for more. It's a discipline that requires skill, diligence, and adaptability as technology evolves. So, whether you're a seasoned testing professional or just starting your journey, continue, and I repeat, continue to learn, explore, and innovate in the realm of software testing. I appreciate your attention today. I hope that this presentation has shed light on the importance of software testing and provides you with valuable insight into the critical aspect of software development and software security. All right. So that's it for today. I hope you found this informative. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, leave me a comment, send me an email, all that good stuff. And on your way out, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with a friend, share it with somebody who's interested in security testing, maybe cybersecurity, all that good stuff, right? We are here to help you. And of course, check out the Patreon. There is tons and tons of valuable information in there that will take your career to the next level. Become a tech barbarian, right? We are doing some amazing things in there. But until next time, friends, this is Tech Coach Ralph signing off.
You either win with us or you watch us win.
Hello.
Hey, Stephanie, how's it going?
All right.
All right. So, I gave you a little project to work on, right?
Yes.
And so I said, like, hey, let's talk about it on the live stream, so you can like walk us through some of the stuff that you did. But before we do that, right, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions so they can know, like, you're just not like a AI bot that I created, and I'm talking to an AI bot, right? So let me see.
Yep.
Right. So how did we meet?
Yeah. So I had actually reached out to you on Reddit. I was really struggling to get any interviews at all. I had submitted several applications, and I knew it was my resume. So I was looking for just some guidance. And you kindly responded. It took me some courage to finally reach out, but I'm so glad I did. You were like, toss me your resume, I'll take a peek at it. And I think once I got your feedback, my exact words were like, okay, you're awesome, let's do this.
All right. And then from like, since we've been working together, right? Is it what you expected, more than you expected, or less than you expected?
It's been incredible. It's been a lot more. I literally have full access to, pretty much like what you said earlier, full access to your brain, whether it's you reaching out to me with ideas or me, like I said, in the chat earlier, I had, a couple interviews today, and literally throughout the day, I was reaching out, asking you your thoughts on things as I was kind of gathering ideas to bring up, and you gave me ideas to bring up. And so it's really been incredible.
Right. Last question before we get into your code review, right?
Yep.
What has been the most valuable part of me working with you?
I've noticed a change in myself. I've gotten a lot more confident since you and I started working together. I think it's really been impacting my mindset a lot more than, definitely the technical skills are there. You're helping me with that. But it's been a whole change in my mindset. And again, I have something to show for it. Today was crazy with, talking to, interviews and all of that. So.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And I love working with you. All right. So let's get to work, right? So enough sentimental stuff. Let's get to work, right?
You either win with us or you watch us win.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.